Some of you have never had the pleasure of looking out over the ocean, either with the waves coming in, lapping at the beaches, or during a storm when the surf gets relatively high and it punishes the cliffs that jut out over the water. In any case, you see either the peacefulness or the power of the ocean. The Bible uses the ocean, and sometimes it's in a symbolic term. But there's one area where it talks about the sea and the waves roaring. And that usually when the sea is in turmoil, in a prophecy, the sea is often a metaphor for the unsettledness of mankind. And that particular phrase that I said, the sea and the waves roaring, that is to mean not just the simple Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, Arctic oceans beating against the shore, whatever the shore happens to be. But it's a metaphor of mankind and how so much of it is unsettled. That is a sign of the Lord coming. Because what's happening is really this. Without the Lord guiding, man doesn't really quite know how to keep anything going for a significant period of time. We all have our ideas. Get rid of this president. Depose this leader. Defeat this army. Drill that well. Make this treaty. And we get enough people to back it up. We say, yeah, it was good, man, good thing. But inevitably, the world falls into turmoil once again. And it really only takes one act, or even more, one person, to tip over the proverbial balance and to throw everything out of whack once more. We see it now, today. Whereas a month ago, we weren't thinking about having a war with Iran. We weren't even thinking about that. We were actually thinking more about those boats that the Navy kept blowing up. And so far, we are saying that's those were drug-running boats. But it's interesting that all of a sudden, we're interested in drug-running boats, that we really haven't done that before. And that's not really the reason why I'm taping this right now. But it's the uncertainty of it. That's really what I'm getting at. And right now, the world is uncertain. Another part of what Christ was saying was men's hearts failing them for fear. I'd done a post on one dealing with the rise of stress-related diseases, heart attacks, strokes, and so on, which we are seeing. The world is becoming more complicated. when we're becoming less and less able to handle all the complications. And so we're left with a dread as to what's next. What else is going to happen? Some of us are afraid that World War III is going to start, that someone is going to go one step too far and it's going to cause everyone, all the other countries, to be sucked into choosing sides. And then becomes the realization of our fears. Because inevitably, if we have a world war, someone would think that it is actually quite within their, what do you call it, their right to launch a nuclear weapon. And then we're talking about world destruction. If it doesn't happen that way, then what about the fight between those with vaccines and those without vaccines? Right now we're seeing a re-emergence of measles, which many people thought that was done away with. But obviously it wasn't. And one group blames the other, but children getting sick and they're dying from what was called a disease that had been eradicated some time ago. Now we're afraid. We're afraid to jump into rivers and ponds, especially if the weather's warm. But that's when you want to jump into a river or a pond, when the weather is warm. But you got to be careful, because if you jump in the wrong river or pond, then you're apt to receive a disease that begins to eat your brain, and you die a very painful death. And it doesn't matter how young or how old you are, you have that going on. You have in Southern California has just experienced, I believe, its hottest March ever in recorded history. And we had temperatures that were hot even for a summer day. High 90s, low hundreds. And you wouldn't have thought that was going to happen based upon 2 months before. Whereas beginning October, it just began to rain and rain and rain and rain and rain until we had, by the time January ended, by the time actually the first part of February ended, we had so much rain that essentially we had actually maybe twice as much rain or more than we would have had at that time ever. It was shaped up to be one of the most rainiest seasons ever. Since then, it just stopped. No rain whatsoever. Instead, hot weather came. And now we're talking again about droughts. Colorado River drying up. Lake Mead drying up. And people are getting once more ready to negotiate how we're going to split the water that we do have. And it's not a good situation. This is, again, only a matter of months. Now we hear about a super El Nino that's going to be hitting. We're going from one extreme to the other. Now remember, climate change doesn't mean that every place gets warm. It means a lot of places get warm, but that also puts more water in the atmosphere. And more water in the atmosphere means that it has to come down in some way and somehow. And in certain cases, it will come down in torrents. Not nice, sprinkly, drizzly weather. In other words, we really don't know Will this be a big fire season? That's been happening actually worldwide. Fires in Australia, fires in Europe, fires in Russia, fires in the Amazon, fires in Patagonia, in Argentina, and of course fires in Canada and United States. Fires everywhere. Like glaciers withdrawing. Pretty soon we will never see a glacier. I remember when we had a church retreat to go to Vancouver. And one of the highlights of my stay there was going up to Whistler's Peak and seeing the glacier that was there. I'd never seen a glacier before in my life. But then again, the glacier was probably retreated from where it was before. So even though the view was beautiful, it was probably more stunning a few years back. Things are changing in this world, not necessarily for the best. So we have all these various things going on. And people wonder why we're so nervous, why we're so jittery, why we're so scared. But these are the things that essentially that God had already foretold that would be signs of his coming. That we would be afraid of so many things that are going on. The anxiety that we have is at all-time high. Don't know if we're going to have a job. Don't know if we're going to have resources. Don't know if we're going to have good air to breathe. I just saw a report that there are cities in Asia and India, whereas they have been the most polluted, most dangerous air in the world. And then we come to the United States and LA comes in at the top once again. Even though we understand why, we've been cutting down on our emissions. We've been trying to watch the air to make sure it's breathable. But then we had the fires. Remember the huge fires that ringed the entire LA basin, all the way from way over in Canyon Country, all the way through to even places in Riverside County that were burning. And the smoke was everywhere. That, of course, led to some pretty high level pollution records. But what can I tell you, saints of God? What can I give you in terms of hope? The saying that I always say, when these things begin to take place, to look up, because your redemption draws nigh. Doesn't mean that, essentially, that the Lord's going to come tomorrow or next week or next year or the year after that or the year after that or the year after that. We don't know. That's how it's supposed to be. But we also can't live in fear. We can't live whereas we are afraid of going out of our homes. We're afraid of looking at the television set. We're afraid of going into work thinking that there may be some terrorist activity happening. Or maybe a disgruntled gunman is shooting up the place. That's another thing. Now we deal with lone wolf people that have guns that willing to shoot up a lot of people and then kill themselves or be killed in a hail of police bullets. They don't care anymore. They want to cause as much death as possible. We have those as well. But within that, all these fears that we take place, maybe the fear of a tsunami. There was one that we had, it essentially didn't turn out to be that high or that much, but we had fears from this big earthquake that tsunami was going to hit the entire West Coast. One day it will. And we'll be in a position that we are trying to evacuate. But again, the idea here is not to scare you, but to just lay bare all the things that we fear economically, environmentally, even religiously. You have different things of Christianity trying to take over governments and label others as satanic, while true Satanism isn't spoken of very much. But in all these cases, the whole idea is to spark fear so we can barricade ourselves, not talk to other people, begin to bring our hatred towards others that may not look like us or talk like us. And we end up trying to stockpile. And on really shaky ground, any boo or any pop, we freak out. We don't want this to happen, but it does. So we asked, how can we get away from this? Everything, plus we're talking about all the Lord's coming too, and that's another thing. We're afraid. That's the one thing you shouldn't be afraid about. We shouldn't be afraid that the Lord is coming. Yes, there are events that will take place, but we have to know that the Lord will protect his own people. So our demeanor is as we see these various signs that the Lord is about to come at any moment. We just don't know when. I may keep saying this for the next 5 or 10 years, but it's okay. Me to say for the next 5 or 10 years, it's okay. That means we're 10 years closer to the Lord's coming. But I'm not going to be one that's going to tell you exactly what it is, because that would be, as I've said in many times past, I'd be calling Christ a liar. When he said, no man knows the day or the hour. And we don't. But my main thing today is, let's cut down on anxiety and fear. If you can't change it, why are you worried about it? And if you can change it for yourself, then take precautions to do it. But don't live your life as though you are captured by this anxiety, fear that is enveloping the entire world. Yes, gas prices are up. Yes, the fear of terrorism is also up. Yes, the fear of being in a more involved war is up. Things do happen. And maybe some of these things we won't be able to avoid. But in the time that we have on this earth that God has given us, let's not be restricted by our fears, but let's meet the challenge and go ahead and thank the Lord for each day that we wake up to. Each day is a day that we can proclaim Jesus. Each day is a day that we can live and walk for God. Each day is a day that we can show to others that essentially Christ is not dead. This day is a day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad about it. Something that was said by David. And truer words have never been spoken. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice. Let's rejoice, saints. Stay rejoicing. Fear has no problem, has no place in this. Fear has torment. But you know what? Perfect love casts out fear. And our Lord's love for us is perfect. So let's trust in his love, that God knows exactly what he's doing. And allow the Lord to really, really use us. Because he's not through with us yet. And God's got this. We don't have it. We think we're losing control. But God's got this. God bless you in Jesus' name.